But hey, man, the NBA is raising eyebrows. It continues to raise eyebrows. Bad teams are playing well. Players are breaking out, breaking records, and among other crazy stuff that, some COVID stuff we don't need to necessarily dive into unless you're going to dive into. But just like normal, Alex, you're going to take us through the big headlines of the NBA. Take it away, man.
Yeah. So as always, I will give you a little update on our fantasy basketball. Yours truly is 5-0. Murdered James this week. James is now 3-2. And then both Tyler and Traden are 2-3. Just pitiful. Some other kind of news and notes. The anniversary of Kobe's death is this week. Just thought we'd put that out there. I know we've talked about it before on the podcast, but also the anniversary of him scoring 81 points against the Raptors was last week. Crazy game, just crazy game. But moving into, some Kobe things to talk about. Into, today's NBA. The COVID thing it's sort of started to mellow out a little bit. The NBA has become a little more strict on what the players can and can't do. Some of them are not super happy about it, but it is kind of starting to mellow out. Teams are, there's less postponements, which is great. Obviously, we want to see these guys play. We're trying to, get this season done, and hopefully they can continue doing that. But we got to talk about Steph Curry. So Absolutely. He just overpassed, I guess, Reggie Miller for second all time on the 3-pointers made list. And he's in his 11th year, and I think it took Reggie his entire career, so 17 or 18 years. I think we need to talk about how Steph has changed the game. I mean, now you look at guys, Anthony Davis is hucking up a 3. Nikola Jokic is hucking up a 3. You would, 15 years ago, you don't see Shaq anywhere near the 3-point line, and Steph Curry changed that. He might be the most influential basketball player in the last 15 years, more than LeBron, because he's changed the way the game has been played. Now, Trey, I know you're not like the biggest basketball fan in the world, but you are a Warriors fan, air quotes. I know this is a podcast, so no one can see me doing that, but
YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube.
There you go. Yeah. So talk about Steph. Let me because I, as not the biggest basketball fan, you have to appreciate what he's done for the game for sure.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll just look at the stats. I mean, like you said, Curry caught Reggie Miller in record time. It took Miller, almost 1,400 games to reach his 25-60 3-pointers, while taking Allen, the one who was number one, Ray Allen, 1,000 games to reach his 25-61 himself, and Curry did that in 715 games. I mean, if we're gonna look at those stats, I mean, Curry still has 300 more games to really go the distance, and I think he's gonna set a record that's gonna be very, very hard to catch. With that said, I think that the way he's actually changed the game of basketball is going to put pressure on him in the future, because I think teams are actually looking for those types of players to get the job done. I mean, Steph is not a big guy. He's small. He had question marks coming into the draft. I mean, you guys all heard it. I mean, everyone questioned this guy. He was small. He was not a prototypical point guard, but there's something that Steph did that, he combated his size by stepping back a little, taking that long bomb shot, and would drain it with good efficiency. And as we know, mathematically, even if you're shooting 40% from 3, you're getting more points than someone who's shooting 50% from 2, inside the line. So mathematically, that's the way you got to, that's makes sense to play basketball like that. And it lets small guys with a major skill set, play this game. And you don't see people trying to find the next, it's hard to find a LeBron. It's hard to find a KD. These guys are freaks. These guys, I mean, Steph Curry is not a freak athletically, but he's probably the best shooter to ever play the game. And that's something that you can teach. That's something that you can practice. That is something that you can find, in your recruiting. And I think that teams have changed their whole game style that way. You're seeing a lot more threes being shot in the game as part of the scheme. Most have been just kind of like part of the, if you shoot a 3, that's just, that's great, but you're mostly hitting that mid-range jumper. That thing's gone now. It's all about a 3-point shot now. And if you can't shoot a 3-point shot, it's tough for you to play, well in this game, I feel like. But he's made a big imprint on this league for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely changed the way the league is being played. something that as the NBA is going through it, we're seeing other sports too, where these Ivy League, Harvard mathematicians, statistical guys are changing the way the game is played.
Yeah.
Literally all NBA teams do now is shoot a bunch of threes and try to dunk because the dunks are the most easily made. And then the threes get you the most points. It's just about how it works. Defense is not really a thing anymore. Back in like the 80s with like Michael Jordan and like the Pistons, him then playing the Pistons, you would never ever see a series like that now. And it seems like every single playoff year we see some team breaking the record for most 3-pointers made, most 3-pointers shot. And that's because of Steph. I mean, you look at guys like James Harden and Dame Lillard, all these guys now. I mean, they're shooting from the logo. I mean, hell, LeBron shoots from the logo now. And, his skill set has never been a great shooter. And Steph has 100% changed the game. And you know what? He's going to break Ray Allen's record. It's really only a matter of time unless he, breaks both of his legs or something. Like it's almost inevitable at this point. It's probably a record that will possibly never be broken, depending on how long he can play. It's crazy. And he's also just like one of the most likable dudes, I feel like, in the NBA. And I know that has nothing to do with how great of a shooter he is, but good for you, Steph.
So Alex, I mean, he has, let's say 400, give or take 400 3-pointers to go to meet Ray Allen. I mean, we got to give an over under. I mean, we're over under how many games? What would you set it at?
400 threes, maybe like, 60, maybe like another season and a half, or like like 65, maybe.
I think that's fair. I mean, he put up 400 in 2016? He put up 402.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
He's probably never going to make that many again. No. But so I'd have to. Well, it's also weird because this season's shorter. Mm-hmm. But I'd say it's broken by the end of next season.
Oh wow,
easy.
Well, stay tuned and we'll see if that happens.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So moving from Golden State Warriors and the premier franchise of the 2010s to the New York Knickerbockers, the basement dwellers of the 2010s. They're a respectable team now. We talked about it last week on the podcast. James said, the Knicks can make the playoffs. And I think my response was, I don't know how to those words make a sentence. That doesn't make any sense to me. But they're a respectable team. And we're going to talk about them again because they're in a playoff spot right now. They're beating good teams. They are one of the best defensive teams in the league. James, what do you think about the Knicks? Can they keep this up, or is this just a weird COVID thing and they'll falter soon?
I really think they can keep this up. One of the things you said with Traden's little segment there was that nobody plays defense in the NBA anymore. Well, the Knicks do, and that's what's fueling them. The thing about defense versus offense is that you can have an off shooting night and you can lose terribly. But if you play defense, it's all about effort. So as long as they continue this effort and playing good defense, they're going to be in games, most of the time. Tom Thibodeau is a really good defensive coach, and I saved it. He's always been a good defensive coach, and he's going to continue to put that culture. He's going to continue to instill that effort and that high intensity that people hate. He's not going to coach the Knicks for very long because people get burnt out of him. Like, he's a yeller, and people can't play with it. He's like Tortorella. People don't like playing for him for a long time. So, he'll be a good coach for the next 3 or 4 years, give or take. But then people get tired of hearing his yelling voice. But for this next 3 and 4 years, he's going to instill that culture. And that culture is going to drive him a long, long way. They're going to continue to, lose to bad teams. They continue losing to bad teams and beating good ones. But that's, again, it comes with maturity. When people come, they play down to their level. And that's because they're a young team. The more they play, the more maturity they get. And the more they understand the game, they know how to bring it every day in and day out, regardless of who they play. And that's just going to help them later on. We're 18 games in. There's a lot more games to go. They'll continue to learn this. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I might be their biggest fan right now. And that's fine. And now for the West, I'm the biggest Warriors fan because of what I said earlier. And the East, I'm going to be the biggest Knicks fan. And that's what it's going to be this year.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Their defense is extraordinary. And Tom Thibodeau is, he's been known for that for years. And they're finally getting good draft picks. They're finally not screwing it up. or they're not trading these guys away or signing these ridiculous contracts. And, the East is down. There's teams that at the beginning of the season I thought for sure were locks. And, like the Toronto Raptors and the Miami Heat are not looking great. And a team like the Knicks can squeak in. Do I think they're going to make a run in the Eastern Conference? No. I mean, there's some big boys up top there that, the Knicks would never beat in a 7-game series. But it's good for basketball when the Knicks are good. I think Spike Lee's probably still a bigger fan of the Knicks than you are, James. But
just a tiny bit, though.
Just a little bit. But you're right. You're right there. You're right there. For sure. Moving to another borough of New York, Eric. You talked about these little hoodlums or whatever. I don't know. These little children on Instagram getting mad at us about our power rankings. I feel like it's a lot about where where the Nets are.
Yeah,
I've mentioned in my articles and on the podcast, great, the Nets got these 3 guys. They can't play any defense. That's a lot of egos there. They lost back-to-back games to the Cavs this week. So what's going on with the Nets? Are they really as hyped up as they should be, or are they still kind of figuring it out?
Yeah, those people definitely got mad at us, and I had the Nets number 1 every single power ranking until this week, everybody. So check it out. I think I have them number 8 now or something.
Wow.
But maybe 6. Either way, 6 to 8 range. Yeah. Okay. Now you guys are fucking rattled up. Dude, they're gonna be fine. They beat Miami tonight by 15. However, there was no Jimmy Butler. But still, they kind of look like a Clippers of last year. They're working through the kinks. They just got Harden. He's a big piece. You're kind of right. They got to work on their defense. They got to figure out. It's weird. Tonight I was watching them. They were passing the ball actually way too much, which is pretty surprising. I think when it comes to playoff time, which they will make playoffs, let's not get too crazy here. They're going to have to decide who shoots the final shot. I think it should be Durant. Or Kyrie. I feel like those 2 guys have made clutch shots before in the playoffs. You're not going to be too mad if Harden has to take it, but it's going to help to have those 3 guys out there come the final play of games. And I think it's going to be a battle either versus the Celtics or the Bucks in the Eastern Finals this year. One of those 2 teams will play the Nets, and that's going to be their true test. Can they make it to the finals? They got to work out the kinks now, though. Losing to Cleveland back-to-back isn't a good look, but I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's a good point about – I would also pick KD to take the last shot. He's the best scorer out of the 3 of them. He's unguardable. And, something I literally thought about as you were talking is this is the first time James Harden has been to the playoffs, not as either a young, 21, 22-year-old in that Thunder team – back when KD and Westbrook and the 3 of them were together, or where he's had to be the man in Houston. And for Mike D'Antoni, who, as we all know, I fucking hate that guy. So that's not going to work. It will. Yeah, they have some growing pains. I'm just a little worried because it's a short season. They might not have enough time to get it all figured out. And when they play some of these elite offensive and defensive teams like the Bucks or the Celtics, I don't know if they have enough defense. If they shoot them out of the building, great. But if you have a couple cold games, you lose a close one. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
There's that D'Antoni is an assistant on the Nets now.
Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah, of course he is. This is going to make you like him that much more.
I know, right? What's up, James?
Do you guys hear about JaVale McGee? And the Nets are trying to pursue him big time. They're going to get JaVale McGee. They're giving everything to get him. What do you guys think about that? And would he fit in that scheme with that team?
They need another big because they traded away their Jared Allen, and they're
the Cavs.
Guy, to the Cavs. So they're trying to take.
Now they want JaVale McGee from the Cavs.
They're going to need another big to. None of those guys can guard Giannis or AD or something. They're going to need somebody. If I was JaVale, you got a much better shot at winning another ring, which I think would be his 4th because he won 2 with the Warriors and then 1 with the Lakers last year with the Nets than he would with the Cavs.
Who do you think they're going to give up for that, though?
I don't know how much they have left to give up. They will be. I mean, he's realistically, JaVale McGee is a fringe starting center, backup center. He's not like he's athletic as shit and a good defender, but he's not going to sway the team. I think it's going to come down to those big three, but we'll have to see. That'll be interesting though. JaVale McGee is also a character. That dude is so weird.
He's on Shaq and the Fool so often back in the day.
Yeah, for real.
Try to dunk from the free throw line.
Like, what are you doing? All right, and then last kind of segment on the NBA for this week. We've talked about it and how deep the Western Conference is. James Harden getting traded out of it definitely kind of upsets it. But I mean, Tyler, there's at least 10, you could possibly say 11 teams that realistically have a shot at making the postseason. I mean, some of them are locks. The 2 LA teams, Utah's looking really good. Portland and Denver. But what are you thinking about, like, how competitive this Western Conference is? Do you see any of these teams like really heating up that you're like, oh shit, look at these guys kind of coming? What do you think about the West?
Yeah, the West in the last few years, it's been this way where it's just so tightly packed, and there's always going to be 1 or 2 teams that are on the outside looking in at the end of the season, and it's shaping up to look the same way this year. Obviously, as you mentioned, those top 2 LA teams and Utah are killing it right now. Utah got off to a little bit of a slow start, but since then they've been on fire. Same with Denver. They got off to a pretty slow start, and last week or so played a lot better, kind of how we've expected them. But yeah, that kind of second half of those standings is just like it's anyone's game. And there's going to be a couple teams, at the end of the season that's probably going to lose it by a game, maybe 2 games. It's going to be real close and fun to watch. I would say for me, I think the most surprising team that's competitive is the Spurs. I feel like the last few years they haven't really been that competitive, and they've looked pretty good this year. So I think that could be a team that will surprise some people. The Phoenix Suns, I gave them a lot of props. Since that's happened, they've really shit the bed. So that was a TLDR dump.
Yeah. That's what you do. You either get teams to rise or you get them to just take a fat shit.
Yeah. So it was a fat shit there by the Suns. So they have not looked good. Yeah. Fuck the fucking Eagles. God damn it. But yeah, I mean, I think the West is always super fun to watch and super competitive. So it'll be interesting. But I mean, for me, obviously, the 2 LA teams in Utah look like the top dogs. I mean, Utah might sneak in there as a 1 or 2 seed. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Mitchell's been playing out of his mind. The Jazz have won 8 in a row. The Clippers have won 7 in a row. The Spurs came into LA and beat the Lakers and the Clippers, which is hard to do. Those are.
I mean, you got Pop, dude. If you have Pop,
if you've got Greg Popovich, you're always in it. I would agree with you though. The Spurs are a surprise team. I mean, the Warriors, the Mavericks are right there. I'd say the most disappointing team is probably the Pelicans. They're 5-10. They need to turn it around real quick. They've got enough talent. They should be much better. You really fucked the Suns over. So
yeah, my bad.
That's Tyler's
fault. Phoenix.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They got some time to figure it out, but yeah, after their hard. What am I trying to say? After their fast start, they're kind of falling hard. So we'll have to see what happens.
Hard start.
Yeah, hard start, baby.
Hard start. They're falling fast.
Yeah, they're falling fast after their hard start. But that's what I got for the NBA this week. Let's hope that the COVID doesn't get the little greasy fingers back in there, and we can play some more games.
It will.
I love it.
Greasy in and out fingers, bro.
Wow. Thanks, coach.
That's what
Positively, negatively.
Real fast though, like for the Clippers, they just won 7 in a row. But I just heard it was on ESPN or Twitter or something that Paul George and Kawhi, they're both going to be out for a couple games, at least one, at least. That's going to be tough, 2 stars. That streak might end.
Will be. It's going to be tough. They play Atlanta Hawks tomorrow night, and they don't have either of those guys. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be some other guys that need to step up. We'll see what happens. They got Brooklyn Nets like a week from today, or maybe it's like next Tuesday. That'll be an interesting one.
Definitely.
Must see TV.
During this COVID period, it's next man up. It's if you're ready to play, you gotta play. I mean, there's a lot of injuries, a lot of people going out. So
the NHL calls it the taxi squad, right?
Yep, they have a taxi squad. Next man up. But hey, thank you, Alex. Always good to hear the going ons in the NBA.